Hey, you know what's really cool? Yu-Gi-Oh is really cool.
It's time to Gotcha, bitch!
The big resurgence in interest for the game with the release of Master Duel has prompted a lot of my friends to get into it, but most of them haven't played since the GX era or earlier, and there's a lot of archetypes in the modern game. Well, I'm going to do something absolutely insane and talk about all 330-ish archetypes in the series of videos, just so they and anyone else watching this can get a general idea of how each of the individual archetypes are themed and how they all work in-game. I'll also be providing a vague power level for each of them, so you can determine if the deck is worth building. I will provide a disclaimer here because I've not played all of these, and I've not played against all of these, so I might get something wrong.
So originally I was planning on doing 25 archetypes per video, but after working on this series for about a week, I've decided that doing 5 per video is going to be a lot better for production. This is because doing 25 whole archetypes for the entire video requires me to spend a lot of time on just the one video, and I kind of can't focus on any one archetype and get it fleshed out to a degree that I'm really comfortable with, because I need to be focusing on trying to get the video out. I know that there's a big ideal for YouTubers to put out videos, quote-unquote, when they're done, but that's not really an option for me because I'm all new and not with an established audience and that kind of thing. So yeah, 5 at a time. It's gonna take a good long while to get through all these archetypes, but it'll be worth it in the long run.
I'll be rating them on a power scale of 1 to 5 to give you an idea of how strong they are in the current Master Duel meta. Let's take a look at what the heck I mean by the different tiers. Tier 5 is Caveman Yu-Gi-Oh! Or an absurdly specific niche. These cards are barely worthy of the 1s and 0s made to code them into the game. Either they're completely incapable of making any meaningful plays, or they hyper-counter something so niche that it can't do shit against literally anything else, or they're just both. Tier 4 is outdated, but they can still do things. This space is for old archetypes that can at least play Yu-Gi-Oh! But haven't gotten the necessary new cards to make them actually viable in the game's current format. They can technically still make plays, but they're stuck in an old era of the game and can't keep up with the current power level. Tier 3 is strictly okay. This is the middle-of-the-road tier. Decks here can flip cards and make plays, but either lack some cards that make them really good or can brick very easily. This is the tier of archetypes whose entire game plan is make one boss monster, and if the opponent can out it, then that's game. And if they can't, that's also game. Tier 2 is solidly playable. These are basically rogue decks. They're strong enough to stand up to meta decks, but aren't consistent enough to claim the almighty realm of meta. Decks here can also be built around a specific gimmick that tends to throw meta decks off their groove to the point that they really can't do the game plan that they set out to perform. And Tier 1 is meta. These are the best of the best, easily the most powerful decks in the game that can make crazy plays and completely screw over their opponent. These decks eat Tier 4 and Tier 3 decks without even noticing, and they only have to worry about actually playing the game when going up against Tier 2 and fellow Tier 1s. Tier 0 is the I was Tier 0 tier. These were formerly the most busted cards in the game. Some of these archetypes are like 90% banned, while others had key cards banned, which prevent them from really doing much of anything. Cards in this tier will have this number as a reference point with their current playable number in parentheses next to it, because there is no current Tier 0 archetype in Master Duel. So this is mostly just here to serve as a historical milestone for people. With that out of the way, let's go ahead and get started with number 1, Numeron Gate Echem. This number is exclusively used in combination... Wait a minute, that's the wrong kind of number. Hold on. Number 1, Slash Assault Mode. Do you like taking perfectly good synchro monsters and making them significantly uglier and less useful? Well, we have an archetype for that. Assault Mode's entire gimmick is to use a card called Assault Mode Activate to take specific synchros and turn them into their Assault Mode counterparts. Unfortunately, the deck is a bit strange since the synchros with Assault Modes aren't really designed to function together. So you can make 2 kinds of decks. A normal deck functioning around one of the synchro Assault Modes with Assault Mode support splashed in, or a pure Assault Mode deck designed to turbo out the synchros and get them assaulted. The main issue with this archetype is that while the Assault Mode engine has gotten smoother and more lubricated as time has gone on, the actual Assault Modes the engine is designed to produce are generally not worth the effort. If you really want to play this archetype, just build a generic synchro spam archetype and make it worse with Assault Modes. This deck would get a 4, but Assault Mode Stardust Dragon is such an absurdly hard monster to get rid of that it gets bumped up to a 3 because it's just that easy to get out with the modern Assault Mode engine. But decks that are focused around this are less of an Assault Mode deck and more of an extension to a Stardust Dragon deck. So yeah, they're good there, but for fuck's sake, don't run this archetype here. Number 2, adding Neister. Do you like being a Discord admin while shipping out every single summoning mechanic in the game at once? Well, there's an archetype for that. This is a general cyber spam archetype. These guys lack any kind of specific gimmick across all their cards, but they're built to assist in pretty much any summoning method you find interesting. This archetype is flexible, strong, and worth collecting, but there's not much to say on it, as there's little more theming than it is a cyber spam archetype. Except for the fact that this this archetype has the only known Link 6 card in the game, which is their boss monster, the Arrival Cybers adding Neister. He's crazy, gets 1,000 attack for every monster used to summon him, and is completely unaffected by card effects. Granted, that includes yours, but what the hell are you gonna do to this guy? Fucking equip Axe of Despair to him to make him go from a 5k to a 6k beater like a goddamn caveman? Anyway, Igniters are pretty good, feel free to play them. Number 3, ABC. Do you like the idea of the old XYZ Dragon Cannon archetype that Kaiba used in the anime, but want to actually make it playable in the modern context of the game? There's an archetype for that. ABCs take the concept of multiple Union machine monsters combining to form a powerful boss that XYZ Dragon Cannon set up and modernize it for the current game. They still stand as having one of the stronger boss monsters in the game, which is currently hard limited to 1 because it's incredibly easy to get out. The component ABC monsters are also quite strong since they each provide a different card immunity to a light machine monster. Combine these with the massive support for Union and machine monsters and you've got a fairly strong archetype. I will say that they can technically fuse with the XYZ Dragon Cannon to turn it into a huge boss monster, but I don't think that's worth all the effort to get there when ABC Dragon Buster is already a pretty strong card in its own right, and it's debatably stronger than the over-designed mess it can fuse into. Overall, they can still make some pretty spooky plays in the modern game, so ABCs get it too. Number 4, Abyss Actor. Do you like being an actor? Well, we have an archetype for that. This is a pendulum-based archetype themed around the general act of acting. This is not necessarily limited to theater, as it seems to represent all professions that take to the stage for their performance. They're supported by a series of cards called Abyss Scripts, which are spell cards that help them with their plays. Their main gimmick is manipulating their cards in the pendulum zones to better allow them to extend their plays. Their backline support has powerful effects that only activate when they're destroyed by a card effect. Their field spell is especially noteworthy, shutting down every monster effect the opponent can activate and turning it into a set spell and trap destruction instead. The main issue with this archetype is that it seems to lack any extra deck focused boss monster, instead being focused on using the synergy between their monsters and their spells and traps to remove threats from the opponent's board before swarming the field and going for an OTK. They're decently able to get around the MR5 restriction to pendulum summoning from the extra deck with their effects, but overall they seem to lack a solid end board state if they're going first, or a powerful OTK board going second. But they're able to flip a lot of cards and have a pretty decent Link 1, so they'll get into tier 3. Number 5, Adamancipator. Do you like Pokemon and geology? Well, we have an archetype for that. Adamancipators are a synchro spam archetype based around human geologist tuners that delve into a strange mine, discover the sealed forms of crystal monsters that are non-tuners, only to release them in their synchro monster forms. Their major effects rely on them excavating cards from the top of their deck to activate, with the tuners being able to summon non-tuners excavated this way, and the non-tuners having special effects after being summoned this way. They can also very easily recycle a lot of their resources from the graveyard, essentially removing the cost of their excavation. The synchro monsters are pretty strong, as they either allow you to continue your plays or to mass bounce your opponent's cards back to hand, getting around destruction prevention. They also have negation when monsters of a certain attribute are in the graveyard, which they often are given the intended method of summoning these guys. They're consistent enough to get their effects off regularly, and the theming around them is great. The fact that this archetype of geologist has to literally excavate their deck in order to find their sealed beasts is fantastic. But even with some strong setup cards, the random nature of these excavations can occasionally leave them with nothing but dust and bricks. As such, if they go off without a hitch, they're in tier 2, but if they brick, they're in tier 3. And I like the theming, so I'm gonna be a little biased here and put them in tier 2.
Alright, that's it. I hope you all enjoyed the first video. There's going to be a second one coming out sooner rather than later, so I hope you come back to check it out. If you want to be the first to know when the new video is up, please subscribe and hit the bell so you get notified the instant it goes live. But far more important than any of the YouTube stuff is that you share this video with friends. Word of mouth is so strong it should go on the ban list and can help kickstart the YouTube algorithm to get more eyes on this content. Any help you can give me would be greatly appreciated. And hey, if you want to hang out more, I stream regularly on Twitch, and there's a link to the community Discord down below. Thank you once again for watching, and I hope to see you again. Bye-bye!